Random thoughts. In my previous video, I mentioned that among the earliest, or maybe we can say the earliest converts into Islam, besides, of course, the Bedouin tribes, were Africans. They were people in the Horn of Africa. And that's a fact about history that is so interesting to me personally, because for a long time, I did not even imagine that Islam came to Africa at the very earliest point. But another fact about history is that the origins of the Abrahamic belief system is in the Horn of Africa. And for the longest time, I've heard people mention that, and it's something that I thought, that's odd, that does not sound right. There's no way that the origins of the Abrahamic religion or the Abrahamic belief system can be in the Horn of Africa. There's no way that's even possible. But then I got reading, and I wasn't really looking for that information. I was just reading books. For some time, I've had this desire to read the most ancient texts I can find, and just for my personal knowledge, not really to teach anybody anything really. And I've tried to find texts of the people I hear mentioned a lot in history. And at one point, I decided to read a text by Maimonides. Now, Maimonides was born in Cordoba in Spain, and during that time, that region was under a sultan or an Islamic kind of government. It was part of a caliphate. And he grew up under in that environment. He wasn't Muslim himself, but there are sometimes rumors that he did convert to Islam at some point, but then he left Islam at another point. Those are just rumors. I need to clarify that. But then he moved to Africa as a young man. And then he moved to Egypt, and he became a physician. He was a doctor, and he became a personal physician of Saladin. Now, Saladin was the founder of the Ayyubid dynasty in Egypt, and he ruled from Egypt as a sultan for quite some time. Now, Maimonides wrote many books, but one that I found, or was one that I decided to read first, is a book titled The Guide for the Perplexed. Now, this is a book that he writes to his son-in-law, and the son-in-law looks like was more interested in science, physics, chemistry, and things like that. And the son-in-law was confused or perplexed about religious matters. And it seems like the son was kind of like moving away from believing in God and was kind of like getting lost in this realm of there is religion and there is science. How do I walk through that? And Maimonides write The Guide for the Perplexed for that reason. And I will say, even if you don't follow the Judaism religion, the book does a very good job of helping people get clarity, especially in modern days. I think this book was written like 1,000 years ago, but it's so relevant in today's world where more and more people are getting into this confusion of choosing between religion and science. And for some reason, it is made to look like you have to choose either you believe in science or you believe in religion. That's how sometimes these conversations come along. He was trying to help the son-in-law see that science and religion are not really different things, and science is part of religion. And it's the first book that I read that brings out that argument, and very well, I can say. But that's not the point. The point is, within the book, he talks about the origins of Abraham. And he talks of Abraham being from the tribe of the Sabaeans. Now, I had never come across any document that talked about Abraham coming from a tribe of the Sabaeans. And the point at which he brings up this topic is where he's talking to the son-in-law about some not very good ideas, very dangerous ideas that are in a book that used to go by the title The Nabataean Agriculture. Now, that's a book that is no longer in existence, but there are rumors that there are some libraries around the world, a few, maybe one or two, that have that book, a copy of that book. We never know for sure because it's a book that kind of like seems it's not a book that is made public or is available for the public to read. But there are a lot of mentions of that book in different other documents, and he tells him about this book, and he tells him it's a book that is very dangerous, and he warns him to be very careful with that book. But then he tells him of the things terrible things that are mentioned in the book about science and God and creation and things like that. But he tells him that book twists some things. The things that the book talk about are some of the things that made Abraham to rebel against the authorities in the Sabaean Empire. And he talks of Abraham being a citizen of the Sabaean or the Nabataean kingdom. And then he doesn't like that the people were worshipping some different gods here and there in the kingdom or in the society. And he starts to teach the people about the one God, the creator. And by doing so, he runs into trouble with the authorities and he's arrested and thrown into prison. And then he's forced or he's told that he has to stop teaching these ideas. But then he persists and is released and everything is taken away from him. But then he's told to leave the society where he was a citizen, or to leave the Nabataean Empire, or to leave the Sabaean society. And he moved and he went to east, or maybe the northeast. And then most of other documents we have, of course, we have the story of Abraham from there. But Maimonides, of course, gives us that, or gives the son-in-law, this book was intended for the son-in-law, about that background of Abraham. Now, the Sabaeans today, if you interrogate, you find out that the Sabaeans is a people who found very powerful empire in the Horn of Africa, of course, the Nabataean Empire. And they are known to be people who later on, of course, led to the rise of empires like the Aksum Empire and other empires that have emerged in the Horn of Africa. And yeah, so when you learn that, then you realize then Abraham most likely came from the Horn of Africa. And I'm not saying this as if it's a completely verified story. I'm just saying this is one of the stories that we can find out there, that Abraham came from the Nabataean Empire and he came from the Sabaean society. And the Sabaean society is today known to be the society that found the Aksum Empire, and also it is from the Sabaean society that Queen of Sheba came from. And Queen of Sheba is a story that is well known. And Queen of Sheba came from the Horn of Africa, from the Sabaean society. And in fact, Queen of Sheba going to see Solomon was about the relationship that she recognized existed between Solomon and the people where Abraham came from, the Sabaean people. Yeah, so if we are going to take that to be accurate, even if to some extent, then we can make the argument that the Abrahamic belief system originates from the Horn of Africa. Those are my random thoughts.